Discover the captivating life story of Adele Marie, a trailblazing figure whose journey from humble Midwestern roots to international acclaim redefined entertainment in the early 20th century. In this in-depth biography video, we delve into the extraordinary path of Adele Marie, exploring her rise as a vaudeville prodigy, her triumphs on Broadway stages, and her graceful transition to a life of aristocracy and quiet resilience. Known for her effortless grace, comedic flair, and unbreakable spirit, Adele Marie captivated audiences across continents, partnering in iconic performances that blended dance, song, and humor into unforgettable spectacles. Join us as we celebrate Adele Marie's legacy, a Broadway Swan who chose autonomy over applause, inspiring generations with her talent and tenacity. Perfect for fans of Fred Astaire's sister, vintage Hollywood, and untold stories of women in entertainment. If you're searching for Adele Astaire biography, Fred Astaire sibling, or forgotten Broadway stars, this is your must-watch. Hit play to uncover the full tale of resilience, romance, and rhythm. Early years and beginnings of vaudeville career, 1896 to 1917. Adele Marie Austerlitz came into the world on September 10, 1896, in Omaha, Nebraska, right in the heart of the United States. Her father was Frederick Fritz Austerlitz, a man with a fascinating background. He was a Roman Catholic of Jewish descent, born in Austria, and he immigrated to the U.S. in 1892, bringing a touch of that European Old World charm and resilience with him. He found work at the Stords Brewing Company in Omaha, a steady job in a growing industry at the time. Her mother, Johanna Ann Galis, was an American-born woman of German heritage following the Lutheran Protestant faith, which added a layer of practical, grounded American spirit to the household. Then 3 years after Adele, on May 10th, 1899, her younger brother Fred Austerlitz arrived. He's the one the world would later know as the iconic Fred Astaire. From her earliest days, Adele showed an incredible natural gift for dancing. As a little girl, barely out of toddlerhood, some say she started lessons around age 4, she stood out at the local dance school in Omaha, dazzling everyone with her effortless grace and energy. She was the star of every local performance and party, her feet moving with a rhythm that seemed innate, like she was born to the stage. Her parents quickly recognized this sparkling talent in her and decided to nurture it. But they also saw an opportunity for Fred, who was a bit frail and prone to illnesses in his early childhood, catching every cold that came his way perhaps, and needing something to build up his physical strength and confidence. So, they enrolled him in those same dance classes, hoping it would toughen him up and give him a healthy outlet. It worked wonders. Fred soon revealed his own budding talent, those first sparks of what would become legendary skill starting to show as he kept pace with his sister. One of their dance teachers spotted the extraordinary potential in both kids right away and didn't mince words with the family. These two could have a huge career on the stage if you give them proper training. That advice ignited something in the Austerlitz family, pushing them to make a bold move. In 1904, when Adele was 8 and Fred was 5, they uprooted from the wide-open plains and hard-working community of Omaha and headed to the bustling, opportunity-filled streets of New York City. It wasn't an easy transition, though. Fritz had to head back to Omaha to keep his job at the brewery, providing whatever financial support he could from afar. That left Adele, Fred, and their mother Ann to make do in a modest boarding house in New York. Nothing fancy, just a cramped space in a city full of dreamers and strugglers where they had to stretch every penny. Once settled in New York, the siblings threw themselves into intensive training at the Alvine Master School of the Theater and Academy of Cultural Arts. This wasn't just dance lessons. It was a full immersion in stagecraft, acting, and the cultural arts, building a solid foundation for what they hoped would be a professional career. To fit in better in the American show business world, where foreign-sounding names could be a hurdle, they decided to Americanize their surname. After experimenting with a few variations of Austerlitz, they settled on Astaire. It had a smooth, catchy sound that screamed star power. Anne joined in, changing her name too, solidifying it as a family decision. By late 1905, things accelerated. With guidance from their dance instructor Claude Alvienne, who wasn't just a teacher but a creative force, Adele and Fred made their professional vaudeville debut. Vaudeville was the entertainment powerhouse of the era, a vibrant mix of variety acts that packed theaters across the country. Comedians, singers, dancers, acrobats, all thrown together to thrill audiences hungry for live spectacle before movies took over. Alvienne designed a standout routine for them called the Wedding Cake Act. Imagine two enormous, intricately built wedding cakes as stage props, towering tiers with hidden mechanisms inside. Adele and Fred, dressed as a miniature bride and groom in adorable outfits, would dance up and down those layers, their steps triggering tiny electric lights to flicker on and musical bells to chime, all perfectly timed to a simple, elegant waltz. It was innovative, charming, and utterly captivating, a perfect blend of cuteness and cleverness that had crowds cheering and critics raving, with some even calling them the greatest child act in vaudeville. Their early performances weren't a constant stream of work, though. It was sporadic at first, with shows popping up here and there on circuits like the Orpheum, traveling from town to town. Anne stepped up as their manager and costume designer, handling bookings, negotiations, and sewing those elaborate outfits by hand, late nights with needle and thread, pouring her heart into every detail to make her kids shine. To refine their skills further, they took additional classes at the Metropolitan Opera's Ballet School, where they learned the precision and poise of classical ballet, and from the renowned American choreographer Ned Wayburn, who introduced them to more modern, jazzy steps that added an exciting American flavor to their repertoire. Wayburn was a big name, known for revolutionizing dance with his energetic, rhythmic styles that captured the spirit of the times. But the path wasn't all glamour and applause. There came a point when Adele and Fred took a deliberate break from the stage for about 2.5 years, from roughly 1908 to 1911, to attend a regular school in New Jersey and experience some normal childhood. This pause was practical. Adele had hit a growth spurt during puberty, shooting up in height and towering over Fred, who was still smaller. It made their partner dances look mismatched and awkward. Trying to twirl and lift when one is so much taller disrupted the harmony and balance they needed. Plus, it gave them a chance to focus on education, make friends, and avoid burnout from the relentless travel and performances of vaudeville life. Those years in Jersey provided grounding, a taste of ordinary kid stuff like school books and playgrounds, away from the spotlights and train rides. When they returned to vaudeville in 1911, reality hit hard. The industry was fiercely competitive, a cutthroat world where unknown acts like theirs often got overlooked. For the next few years, they hustled endlessly, traveling to auditions, facing rejection after rejection from booking agents who barely gave them a second look. It was a grind, scraping by on whatever gigs they could snag, dealing with the uncertainty of when the next paycheck would come, all while honing their act and building endurance. Heartbreaking at times, but that persistence was key. It taught them humility and resilience, shaping them into tougher performers. Then in 1913, their father, Fritz, provided a crucial connection by introducing them to Aurelio Coccia, an experienced dance instructor and producer with deep roots in the business. Kochia became a mentor, teaching them new dances like evolving forms of the tango and foxtrot, and helping craft a more mature vaudeville routine that moved beyond childlike charm into sophisticated appeal. This shift was transformative. Suddenly, bookings increased, their reputation grew, and audiences responded with more enthusiasm, drawn to the duo's expanding repertoire that now attracted diverse crowds with its exotic and polished steps. 1916 brought a major setback, though. The White Rats of America, the Union for Vaudeville Artists, launched a massive nationwide strike that year, escalating into 1917. It was a heated battle over fair wages, better working conditions, and protection from exploitation by theater managers, a reflection of the broader labor movements sweeping the country during that era of industrial unrest. Even though Adele and Fred weren't union members, the strike's chaos shut down theaters everywhere, costing them precious gigs and income. To compound the trouble, back in Nebraska, the state had just approved a prohibition law banning alcohol, which directly hit Fritz's job at the brewery. With his financial support drying up, the family had to tighten their belts even further, surviving on savings and perhaps odd jobs, navigating those lean times with sheer determination. When the strike finally resolved, the Astaires roared back, delivering a highly successful season of performances that packed houses and earned rave reviews, solidifying their place in the vaudeville world. As they matured, the contrasting personalities of Adele and Fred became more pronounced, like two sides of the same coin. Adele was a perpetual bundle of energy, a live wire, always buzzing with life, incredibly outgoing and sociable, chatting up everyone, from stagehands to fans. She was famous for her straightforward honesty, saying things as they were without sugarcoating, and she had this habit of colorful swearing that could shock the more prim folks, but often endeared her to others with its raw charm. Fred, by contrast, was the dedicated perfectionist, quieter, intensely hardworking, and always anxious about the smallest details in their routines and daily operations. He'd arrive at venues 2 hours early, meticulously checking lights, rehearsing every step, ensuring nothing was left to chance. Adele, on the other hand, would stroll in just minutes before showtime, calm and collected, ready to go. Yet, for all their differences, they shared an unbreakable bond, thick as thieves through every challenge. Adele even coined an affectionate nickname for Fred, Moaning Minnie, teasing him for his habit of worrying about everything that could possibly go awry. You can picture her saying it with a grin, "Oh, Minnie, stop moaning, it's all going to work out." That playful ribbing highlighted their deep closeness, turning potential sibling rivalry into a powerful teamwork that fueled their success. Brilliant Broadway career, 1917 to 1932. The peak of Astaire. In 1917, when Fred, with his typical attention to every little detail, made a clever decision to buy a full-page advertisement on the back cover of Variety magazine, the go-to publication for show business news back then. That strategic choice opened the door for Adele and Fred to secure their very first roles on Broadway in the production Over the Top, produced by the influential Lee Shubert, one of the big names in theater at the time. Adele was 21 years old during this debut, while Fred was just 18, both of them stepping into the bright lights of Broadway for the first time. The show had its premiere on November 28, 1917, and for their contributions in dance sequences and comedy sketches, the siblings earned a weekly salary of $250, which, adjusted for inflation, equates to approximately $6,279 in 2025 terms, giving a sense of how valuable that pay was even in those early days. One critic from the New York Globe was particularly impressed, describing the dance performed by Adele and her brother as one of the loveliest high spots of the program, a compliment that highlighted their unique appeal and helped the entire production run for a respectable 78 performances, a solid start in the competitive world of Broadway. To prepare herself for the singing demands that came with Broadway musicals in the late 1910s and throughout the 1920s, Adele dedicated time to voice lessons under the guidance of Estelle Liebling, a renowned vocal coach who had trained numerous stars at the Metropolitan Opera and on Broadway stages, ensuring Adele's soprano voice was honed to perfection for the roles ahead. Building on that initial success, Adele and Fred maintained their upward trajectory by appearing in The Passing Show of 1918, a revue-style production that extended to 125 performances, showcasing their growing popularity. In this show, Adele had a standout moment with a solo number right at the opening, where she sang "I Really Can't Make My Feet Behave," a fun, lively song that perfectly captured her playful personality and exceptional dancing skills, drawing enthusiastic responses from the audience night after night. Then, in November 1919, the Astaires took on roles in the operetta Apple Blossoms, which marked the beginning of a fruitful professional partnership with Broadway producer Charles Dillingham, a man known for his keen eye for talent and successful shows. This production proved to be a major hit, running for an impressive 256 performances and solidifying their status in the theater community. Their father, Fritz, traveled to see them perform, adding a personal touch of pride to their achievements during this period. They began with a weekly salary of $550, which later increased to $750 when the show embarked on a post-Broadway tour from September 1920 to April 1921, amounts that translate to about $10,220, $12,055 in 2025, reflecting their increasing value to producers. In contrast to Fred, who often struggled with shyness when not on stage, making interactions awkward, Adele thrived in social settings, comfortably engaging with reporters thanks to her extroverted nature, which made her a favorite in press circles and helped build their public image. Despite the commercial disappointment of their next project, The Love Letter, which opened in October 1921 and managed only 31 performances before closing, Adele and Fred continued to captivate audiences with their talent, proving that even in a flop, they could shine. It was in this show that they introduced one of their most iconic closing moves known as the runaround, a clever and entertaining routine where, at the conclusion of a dance number, they would stand side by side, shoulders touching, and extend their hands as if holding imaginary bicycle handlebars, then proceed to run in ever-widening circles across the stage, while the orchestra played a series of upbeat oompa sounds to match their steps, building excitement until they dramatically disappeared into the wings. The crowds absolutely loved this bit, cheering wildly each time. Fred himself attributed much of its success to Adele's exceptional comedic timing and expressive faces, which added that extra layer of humor, and as a result they incorporated the runaround into nearly all their subsequent joint performances throughout their shared career. That same year, the celebrated British playwright Noel Coward made his first trip to New York, attended a performance of The Love Letter, and was so captivated by the Astaire's talent that he visited them backstage, enthusiastically suggesting they consider bringing their act to London to expand their reach internationally. Moving into 1922, Adele and Fred achieved another milestone by landing their first substantial speaking roles in the Broadway musical For Goodness Sake, where they portrayed the best friends of the main characters, allowing them to showcase not just their dancing, but also their acting abilities. The critics were full of praise for their performances, and they delivered a memorable number singing The Witchness of the Whatness, a whimsical song that ended with their crowd-pleasing runaround move, further cementing its status as a signature element. The triumph of this show enabled Fred to take on a larger role in choreographing their dance routines, giving him more creative control and helping to define their unique style. This success led to them receiving top billing for the first time in The Bunch and Judy, although the show itself was short-lived, but their compensation reached $1,000 per week, equivalent to around $19,135 in 2025, a clear sign of their rising stardom. Renowned drama critic Haywood Broun lauded them as the most graceful and glamorous young dancers in the musical world, words that captured the elegance and charm they brought to every performance. As their careers continued to ascend, Adele became widely recognized for her hilarious facial expressions and her clear, lovely soprano voice that enchanted listeners, often improvising lines on stage to add spontaneous fun. Her performances were always full of vibrant energy, delighting audiences with her one-of-a-kind sense of humor that made every show feel fresh and engaging. In response, Fred developed his distinctive, refined approach, dancing with a pretended nonchalance that appeared effortless yet was meticulously crafted, a style he would maintain throughout his entire dancing career. Together they created a dance aesthetic characterized by intricate steps, executed at high speed with remarkable grace, frequently likened by critics and admirers to a swirling whirlwind that left spectators breathless and wanting more. Inspired by the suggestion of performing abroad, Adele and Fred decided to export For Goodness Sake to London's West End, retitling it Stop Flirting to suit the local audience. The production premiered on May 30th, 1923, at the Shaftesbury Theatre to rapturous applause, achieving an extraordinary run of 418 performances before transferring to the Queen's Theatre and later the Strand Theatre, demonstrating their international appeal. The Prince of Wales, who would eventually become King Edward VIII, attended the show no less than 10 times, becoming a genuine fan, and both he and his brother, the Duke of York, formed friendships with the Astaires. Adele personally taught Edward some innovative tap dance steps, and they even shared a dance at a nightclub, creating memorable moments that blended royalty with show business. With their fame surging, both siblings featured in prominent advertising campaigns, boosting their visibility even further. During their London stay, J.M. Barrie, the author of Peter Pan, extended an invitation to Adele to portray the iconic character of Peter Pan on stage, an offer she had to decline due to contractual obligations, though it was a tremendous honor nonetheless. Sadly, early in 1924, they received the devastating news that their father, Fritz, had succumbed to cancer, a loss that cast a somber note over their otherwise triumphant period. Returning to New York in late 1924, Adele and Fred took leading roles in Lady, Be Good, the inaugural Broadway musical entirely composed by the talented brothers George and Ira Gershwin, whose music would become synonymous with the era's jazz age spirit. The show was a resounding success, tallying 330 performances and earning them a weekly salary of $1,750, which adjusts to roughly $32,898 in 2025, underscoring their top-tier status. A critic proclaimed Adele as the most charming and entertaining musical actress in many moons, a poetic compliment that underscored her magnetic stage presence. In the spring of 1926, they transported Lady Be Good to London, opening at the Empire Theatre, to overwhelming praise and reestablishing their connections with the British royal family, including invitations from the Duke and Duchess of York to visit their newborn daughter, Princess Elizabeth, a future queen. Additionally, King George V and Queen Mary attended performances, lending an air of prestige to their run. In 1927, the Astaires collaborated once more with the Gershwins in New York for Funny Face, yet another hit that showcased their talents brilliantly. Shortly after its opening, they participated in a screen test for Paramount Pictures, who were eager to adapt Funny Face into a film starring them, but both siblings were dissatisfied with the initial footage, leading to the project's cancellation. The Broadway version of Funny Face enjoyed 250 performances, only concluding due to an intense summer heat wave in 1928 that rendered theaters uncomfortably hot for both audiences and performers alike. That same summer, Adele suffered a serious injury in a boating accident off Long Island when the motor exploded, splashing hot oil that burned her upper body severely, forcing her to pause her career for several months. Yet she made a complete recovery, demonstrating her resilience. The London premiere of Funny Face occurred in November 1928, sustaining 263 performances, with British newspapers hailing it as another outbreak of hysteria, a term coined to describe the feverish enthusiasm surrounding the duo's appearances, as fans eagerly embraced the American stars once again. On the final night of their London engagement, Adele was introduced to Lord Charles Cavendish, the second son of the 9th Duke of Devonshire, who was a few years her junior. They connected immediately, spending romantic time together in Paris before Adele returned to America with Fred, and they soon reunited when Cavendish relocated to New York for employment at the prestigious J.P. Morgan and Company banking firm. Although their following production, Smiles in 1930, failed to find commercial success, Adele and Fred swiftly recovered by headlining their final shared Broadway endeavor, The Bandwagon, which opened on June 3, 1931, and endured for 260 performances. The ensemble cast featured notable talents like Tilly Losh, Helen Broderick, and Frank Morgan, adding depth to the production. Critics acclaimed its forward-thinking script, infused with modern wit, and its groundbreaking stage design, highlighted by a specially constructed double-revolved turntable that rotated in two directions simultaneously, enabling rapid and fluid scene transitions, while the cast continued to dance and sing without interruption, a technical marvel that enhanced the show's dynamic flow. With The Bandwagon proving to be a groundbreaking hit and their last joint triumph on Broadway, Adele and Fred took the show on tour, where it continued to dazzle audiences. However, behind the scenes, Adele was contemplating a major life change, weary of the demanding performer lifestyle after nearly 3 decades in the spotlight. As the production reached Chicago in early 1932, she made the bold decision to retire following her final performance with Fred on March 5th, setting the stage for her whirlwind romance and marriage to Lord Charles Cavendish just 2 months later. This shift marked the close of her dazzling Astaire era and the beginning of a more private, aristocratic chapter fraught with joys and profound sorrows. Leaving the stage and first marriage, 1932 to 1944, the Swan finds a harbor. After dating for a while, it was Adele who took the initiative and proposed to Charles Cavendish at a secretive speakeasy known as 21, a popular hidden spot during the Prohibition era where patrons entered through discreet doors to enjoy illicit drinks in an atmosphere of jazz music and low lighting, away from the watchful eyes of authorities, and he accepted her proposal without hesitation. By that point, Adele had grown weary of the relentless schedule of tours, rehearsals, and performances that defined the life of a stage artist. She famously likened show business to an acquired taste like olives, illustrating that her illustrious career, spanning vaudeville and Broadway triumphs, was fueled primarily by her innate talent and dedicated effort, rather than an all-consuming inner passion. It wasn't that she despised the world of entertainment, but it had become something she adapted to over time. Just before his debut in the new production The Gay Divorce, she sent him a playful telegram. "Now, Minnie, don't forget to moan," referencing her affectionate nickname for him, Moaning Minnie, which playfully teased his worrisome nature. This message exemplified their enduring sibling closeness and sense of humor, showing that Adele continued to support and follow Fred's career from a distance, even in her retirement. The early years at Lismore held initial optimism, but profound sorrow soon overshadowed them, when in 1933, Adele prematurely gave birth to a daughter who tragically did not survive beyond a few hours. 2 years later, in 1935, she endured the loss of stillborn twin sons, compounding the grief in a time when medical interventions for such complications were limited. These events plunged Adele into periods of deep depression, set against a backdrop of mounting domestic difficulties. Charles's battle with severe alcoholism intensified, leading to extended stays in hospitals, nursing facilities, and therapeutic spas across Germany, where he repeatedly attempted, without success, to overcome his addiction amid the rising political tensions in Europe during the mid-1930s. The global economic turmoil of the Great Depression added external pressures, but Adele's internal struggles were far more acute. In 1936, the esteemed Hollywood producer David O. Selznick extended an offer for her to take a supporting role in his upcoming film Dark Victory, a poignant drama that would eventually feature Bette Davis in the lead and become a classic of the era. Adele participated in screen tests but found the results unsatisfactory, and with her focus consumed by tending to her husband's deteriorating health, she declined the opportunity. The following year, in 1937, Selznick approached her again with another film role, but she once more turned it down, prioritizing her personal responsibilities over a potential foray into cinema. By 1939, at the age of 42, Adele experienced her third and final pregnancy, which sadly concluded in a miscarriage. These successive tragedies delineated a deeply anguishing phase in her life, reinforcing her resolve to distance herself irrevocably from the entertainment industry and embrace a more secluded existence, evoking the image of a refined yet enigmatic figure akin to one from Truman Capote's literary world, poised, introspective, and profoundly affected by private sorrows. With the outbreak of World War II sweeping across Europe, Adele, entering her mid-40s, sought ways to make a meaningful contribution amid the global conflict. In 1942, she encountered Colonel Kingman Douglas, who served as the chief of U.S. Air Force intelligence stationed in London. He proposed that she volunteer at the American Red Cross's Rainbow Corner Canteen, a vibrant facility located near the bustling Piccadilly Circus, designed as a welcoming refuge for American servicemen stationed overseas, offering food, entertainment, and a touch of home. Adele eagerly accepted the suggestion. Her mother remained in Ireland at Lismore Castle to care for Charles, who was frequently confined to bed due to his ailments, and kept Adele informed through consistent correspondence detailing his health updates. In London, amidst the wartime disruptions and shortages, Adele immersed herself fully in the volunteer efforts. She composed and dispatched letters on behalf of the soldiers to their loved ones back home, producing as many as 130 in a single week, each crafted with care to bridge the emotional distance for these young men far from family. She staffed the information desk, providing guidance on local attractions, transportation, or essential needs for those navigating the city. She also danced with the troops, reviving elements of her Broadway prowess to boost morale in the canteen's lively environment, packed with cigarette smoke, jukebox tunes, and the chatter of homesick GIs. When the intense phase of the London Blitz commenced, with its nightly air raids, explosive bombardments, and pervasive fear gripping the capital, Adele increased her commitment, dedicating herself to 7-day work weeks without respite. Amid falling bombs, wailing air raid sirens, and the constant threat of destruction, she persisted in serving refreshments, engaging in conversations, and offering moments of levity through a quick dance or encouraging word. This role during the war provided Adele with a renewed sense of direction and fulfillment, allowing her to redirect her innate energy toward altruistic service and helping her process the accumulated personal hardships, rediscovering a form of inner light not through performance but through compassionate action in one of the most trying periods of modern history. Sorrow revisited in March 1944, when Charles succumbed to chronic alcohol poisoning at the young age of 38. Adele was granted compassionate leave from her canteen responsibilities to return for his funeral at St. Carthage's Cathedral in Lismore, a historic venue with ties to early Christian Ireland, where he was interred close to their deceased children in a subdued service that mirrored the melancholic conclusion of their challenging marriage. Following this loss, the celebrated composer Irving Berlin extended an invitation for her to return to Broadway in his forthcoming musical, Annie Get Your Gun, a part that aligned with her talents and could have marked a spectacular comeback. However, Adele resolutely declined, solidifying her commitment to a life detached from the stage's demands and the public's gaze, opting instead for a path of personal tranquility and independence. Second marriage and later life, 1947 to 1981. Peace within reach. In April 1947, Adele Astaire entered into her second marriage, wedding Kingman Douglas, an individual she had known from her time during the World War II, when both were involved in activities supporting American servicemen in London, particularly at the Rainbow Corner Club run by the American Red Cross. Douglas, born in 1896, had a multifaceted professional background. He was a veteran of World War I, where he served as a pilot in the U.S. Army Air Service, and by the 1940s, he had established himself as an investment banker on Wall Street, managing significant financial transactions in the post-war economic landscape, including roles at firms like Dillon, Reed, and Company, which specialized in corporate finance and securities. His personal life included a previous marriage that ended in divorce, from which he had 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter, who would become Adele's stepchildren, thereby broadening her familial responsibilities and connections in ways that integrated her into a new domestic structure. Additionally, Douglas's career extended into government service. In 1951, during the height of the early Cold War tensions and the Korean War, he briefly held the position of Assistant Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, under Director Allen Dulles, a role that involved oversight of intelligence operations and administrative functions within the agency, though his tenure lasted only about a year before he returned to private sector pursuits. At the time of their engagement, Adele faced financial constraints that prevented her from independently relocating back to the United States after her extended stay in Ireland following her first husband's death. She communicated her engagement news to the Cavendish family. her late husband, Charles, Cavendish's relatives, including the Duke of Devonshire, and they provided the necessary financial assistance to facilitate her move, demonstrating the enduring bonds and mutual respect between Adele and her in-laws, despite the changes in her personal life. This support came with a formal arrangement allowing Adele to continue visiting Lismore Castle, the historic 12th century estate in County Waterford, Ireland, for 3 months each year, typically during the summer season. However, this privilege carried obligations. Adele was required to contribute financially to the castle's maintenance, which encompassed a range of expenses such as structural repairs to the ancient stone walls and towers, landscaping of the extensive gardens designed by notable architects like Joseph Paxton, upkeep of interior furnishings including antique tapestries and artworks, and general operational costs like staffing and utilities to preserve the property's heritage status as a key cultural landmark. The wedding itself took place on April 29, 1947, in a ceremony held in Virginia, likely chosen for its proximity to Douglas's professional and personal networks, and it marked a new chapter characterized by geographic mobility and adaptation. The couple's residences reflected their evolving lifestyle. Initially, they settled in New York City, immersing themselves in the post-war vibrancy of Manhattan with its financial districts, cultural institutions, and social scenes, though Adele steadfastly avoided any return to theatrical engagements. They later moved to the more tranquil rural settings of Virginia, where Douglas owned property that offered respite from urban intensity, featuring expansive farmlands, equestrian activities, and a slower pace conducive to family life. By the 1960s, they had relocated to Round Hill in Jamaica, an affluent enclave near Montego Bay, known for its luxurious villas, private beaches, and gated communities frequented by international elites and celebrities. This tropical setting, with its warm climate, lush vegetation including palm trees and hibiscus gardens, and ocean views, provided an idyllic backdrop for their retirement years. In Jamaica, Adele embraced her role as a hostess with enthusiasm, organizing social events at their home, such as formal dinners featuring local cuisine like ackee and saltfish, or jerk-seasoned meats, informal poolside gatherings with cocktails, and family reunions that fostered connections among her stepchildren, extended relatives, and friends. These occasions highlighted her enduring charisma, honed from years on stage, now channeled into creating warm, inclusive environments filled with conversation, shared meals, and recreational activities like card games or storytelling sessions. Throughout this period, Adele remained committed to her retirement from performing, a decision she had made definitively after her final stage appearance in 1932's The Bandwagon. She resisted any temptations or offers to return to the spotlight, prioritizing personal fulfillment over professional revival. However, her legacy continued to resonate in cultural circles. In 1953, renowned writers P.G. Wodehouse, famous for his humorous novels featuring characters like Bertie Wooster and Jeeves, and Guy Bolton, a prolific playwright and librettist who had collaborated on numerous Broadway productions, including some with the Astaires, authored a satirical epilogue in a publication or memoir context that playfully recounted the siblings' careers. The piece stated, Adele concluded her career with a triumphant performance in The Bandwagon. She then married the second son of the Duke of Devonshire and retired to Lismore Castle, leaving an unfillable gap. Fred struggled on without her for a while, but eventually gave up and vanished. There are rumors he turned up in Hollywood. That's the best the poor chap could hope for after losing his talented sister. This tongue-in-cheek narrative, infused with Wodehouse's signature wit and Bolton's theatrical insight served multiple purposes. It humorously exaggerated Fred Astaire's transition to Hollywood successes like film's Top Hat, 1935, and Swing Time, 1936, as a mere consolation following Adele's departure, while underscoring the public's perception of Adele as the foundational talent whose presence had elevated their duo acts. It portrayed her retirement not as a fade-out, but as a deliberate, graceful exit, likening her to a Hollywood swan who had chosen aristocratic seclusion and personal autonomy over continued public adulation, thereby cementing her image as an icon of elegance and self-determination in entertainment history. The later years brought challenges, particularly in 1968 when Kingman Douglas suffered two serious accidents in quick succession. The first involved being struck by a bus, possibly in an urban setting like Chicago or New York, where he might have been conducting business, resulting in injuries such as fractures, contusions, and potential internal damage that required medical attention and recovery time. Shortly thereafter, he was involved in a car crash, which exacerbated his physical condition, leading to prolonged health issues including mobility limitations and chronic pain. These events contributed to a decline in his overall well-being, culminating in his death on October 8, 1971, from a cerebral hemorrhage, a condition involving the rupture of blood vessels in the brain, often precipitated by factors like hypertension, prior trauma, or age-related vascular weaknesses causing rapid neurological deterioration and fatality. Following Douglas's passing, Adele relocated to the Phoenix metropolitan area in Arizona, drawn to its arid desert climate, which offered health benefits such as reduced humidity for respiratory comfort, abundant sunshine averaging over 300 days per year, and a landscape of saguaro cacti, red rock formations, and hiking trails that aligned with her active habits. She resided in suburban neighborhoods like Scottsdale or Paradise Valley, known for their retiree communities, golf courses, and cultural amenities including art galleries and theaters, though she maintained her distance from performance involvement. Until 1979, she upheld her annual 3-month sojourns at Lismore Castle, using this time to engage in reflective activities such as strolling the 8-acre gardens with their yew hedges and rhododendrons, overseeing minor estate projects she funded, or hosting small gatherings with local acquaintances, thereby preserving a tangible link to her first marriage and Irish heritage. Adele's physical resilience was remarkable. She maintained a rigorous routine of morning runs well into her late 70s, often covering distances along neighborhood paths or desert trails, a practice rooted in her dancer's discipline that promoted cardiovascular health, muscle tone, and mental clarity. Accounts from friends and family describe her recoveries from illnesses as exceptionally swift and robust, likening her to a British Marine, a reference to the Royal Marines' reputation for toughness and endurance, where she would rebound with vigor, expressing her opinions forthrightly and blending her Midwestern American straightforwardness with the stoic resilience she had adopted during her years in England and Ireland. This blend of traits enabled her to navigate aging with independence and optimism. Her relationship with her brother Fred Astaire remained a cornerstone of emotional support, characterized by frequent correspondence through handwritten letters detailing daily life, exchanged packages containing personal items like books, photographs, or small mementos, and lengthy transatlantic telephone calls. These conversations often revolved around shared interests in television soap operas, such as General Hospital, Days of Our Lives, or All My Children, whose intricate plot lines involving romance, betrayal, and family dynamics provided fodder for analysis, laughter, and bonding, echoing the dramatic flair of their own stage careers. This sibling connection, forged in their childhood in Omaha, Nebraska, and sustained through decades of separation by careers and geography, endured as a constant source of comfort and continuity until Fred's death in 1987, though Adele's life ended earlier. Significant recognitions marked this era. In November 1972, Adele and Fred were among the inaugural inductees into the American Theater Hall of Fame, established that year by the American Theater Wing and housed at the Gershwin Theater in New York City. The ceremony honored their contributions to Broadway and Vaudeville, with plaques commemorating legends like Helen Hayes and Lorette Taylor, celebrating the Astaire's innovative dance routines, comedic timing, and enduring influence on musical theater. In 1975, their mother, Adele Astaire, passed away at the age of 96, having outlived her husband and witnessed her children's rise to fame. Her death represented the closure of the family's foundational generation, leaving a legacy of encouragement and managerial guidance that had propelled Adele and Fred's early careers. Legacy and death, 1981. Adele Astaire passed away on January 25, 1981, at Scottsdale Memorial Hospital in Scottsdale, Arizona. She had reached the age of 84 with a lifespan that encompassed her early vaudeville experiences, the opulent settings of European nobility, and a return to the arid expanses of the American Southwest. The cause of death stemmed from a stroke, an abrupt and severe occurrence that affected her on January 6th of that year. Family accounts indicate she did not regain consciousness following the initial incident, passing away calmly after several weeks under medical care. This event underscores the vulnerability of even the most vigorous individuals. Adele, celebrated for her inexhaustible vitality, sharp intellect, and agile movements that captivated crowds on Broadway and in London, encountered an unforeseen halt from a neurological condition. Such strokes typically arise unexpectedly in advanced age, linked to elements like chronological progression, pre-existing medical conditions, or the accumulated strains from a life of peaks and valleys. Throughout her years, Adele maintained exceptional well-being, continuing daily runs into her 70s and recovering from ailments with a resilient demeanor influenced by her American heritage and international experiences. However, at 84, physical boundaries asserted themselves, concluding her time in that subdued hospital environment in Arizona. Scottsdale represented her residence during those latter periods, selected after the 1971 death of her second husband, Kingman Douglas. She transitioned there from Jamaica, exchanging the island's moist atmosphere for the desert's parched warmth, characterized by expansive horizons and landscapes punctuated by cacti, which provided a tranquil setting for her later life. This location aligned well with her dynamic history. The breadth of Arizona echoed the broad scope of her journey, from modest origins in Omaha to the splendor of Lismore Castle in Ireland. News of her passing appeared in major publications. The New York Times described her as a dancer-comedian, and the Washington Post emphasized her role as Fred's initial professional collaborator. Beyond media coverage, it constituted a profound personal bereavement for her relatives, encompassing her brother Fred, active in Hollywood at that point, and her stepchildren from the Douglas Union. Fred, known for his reserved nature, likely experienced it intensely. Their relationship remained steadfast, formed during youthful practice sessions, and maintained via correspondence, shipments, and extended discussions on television serials until the close. Regarding her ultimate resting arrangements, They encapsulate Adele's intertwined existences, linking her American foundations with her embraced British aristocracy. A portion of her ashes found dispersal in Ireland, adjacent to Lismore Castle, the impressive property in County Waterford, where she enjoyed numerous contented years alongside her first spouse, Lord Charles Cavendish. The scene involves verdant, undulating terrain, the castle's historic masonry ascending amid Irish fog, and proximate burial sites of her offspring, those sorrowful absences from her initial marriage, and Charles, who succumbed prematurely in 1944. This dispersal transcended symbolism. It deliberately reconnected her essence with the locale and individuals most cherished in that life segment. Lismore functioned beyond a mere dwelling. It served as a haven for social assemblies, garden explorations, and serenity post her intense theatrical pursuits. Reports from her niece, Ava Astaire, Fred's offspring, who managed the process, describe it as executed in a modestly non-traditional manner, possibly a serene ritual beneath the Irish firmament, with breezes distributing her presence over the valued territories. Ava subsequently expressed the sense of honoring Adele's desires, perpetually associating her with Waterford County, a region she regarded as home since her 1932 integration into the Cavendish lineage. The remaining ashes received interment near her mother's plot in Chatsworth, California, within Oakwood Memorial Park. Chatsworth, a Los Angeles suburb, may appear distant from Ireland's verdant expanses, yet it logically connects when considered thoroughly. Her mother, Anne Gaylis Astaire, who departed in 1975 at 96 years, anchored the family unit, the figure who initiated Adele and Fred's dance instruction during their Omaha childhood and directed their nascent professions with resolute commitment. Placing part of Adele there signified a complete cycle, reverting to her American origins, proximate to the cinematic allure her brother adopted, and the familial heritage that initiated everything. Oakwood Memorial Park offers a calm burial ground, accommodating other notables, and Adele's site there highlights her ties to the American performance sphere, despite her withdrawal decades prior. This divided arrangement, segments in Ireland and California, accentuates her perpetual equilibrium between dual heritages, the noble English lineage from her first matrimony and the grounded American starts that molded her. Such an approach remains uncommon, but for Adele, it suited ideally. No solitary site could encompass her entirety. Progressing to posthumous commemorations, recognitions emerged in the early 1980s, coinciding with her departure. The Anglo-American Contemporary Dance Foundation instituted the Fred and Adele Astaire Awards to acclaim exceptional dancers and choreographers on Broadway. Initiated in 1982, merely a year following Adele's demise, these accolades directly acknowledge the siblings' influence on musical theater. They honored dance proficiency akin to the Tonys for comprehensive productions, yet concentrated specifically on movement artistry, the domain Adele and Fred transformed during the 1920s and 1930s. Through time, the awards transformed. In 2017, they underwent renaming to the Chita Rivera Awards for Dance and Choreography, tributing the esteemed artist, though their roots link directly to the Astaires. Recipients have encompassed figures such as Savion Glover for Shuffle Along, Andy Blankenbuehler for Hamilton, and Sergio Trujillo for On Your Feet, individuals who expanded dance frontiers, mirroring Adele's integration of humor and seamless poise. The awards originated to sustain the Astaire designation in theatrical domains, featuring ceremonies with homages, enactments, and addresses emphasizing Adele's radiance and Fred's accuracy as benchmarks. Theater commentator Douglas Watt from The New Yorker and Daily News contributed to their inception with Fred's endorsement, rendering it a sanctioned family heritage. Presently, despite the rebranding, they retain the Astaire essence, informing emerging artists about the pair who equated Broadway dance with delight and novelty. Recent developments include the 2025 presentation of a Lifetime Achievement Honor to Ben Vereen, underscoring the award's continued relevance in celebrating dance excellence. Adele Astaire's life is a unique symphony of talent, fame, personal tragedy, and courageous choices. From a glamorous Broadway swan who won the hearts of audiences and British royalty, she voluntarily withdrew from the spotlight to live an aristocratic life at Lismore Castle, taking the name Lady Charles after marrying Lord Charles Cavendish. Although her younger brother Fred Astaire's fame later surpassed hers, Adele still holds a special place in entertainment history, not only for her outstanding talent, but also for her decision to leave the stage, turning down all offers to return to cinema to find peace in her personal life. Adele's life was not without suffering and loss, from the loss of her children to her first husband's struggle with illness. Yet she always maintained her strong spirit, her straightforwardness, and her unbreakable bond with her beloved brother. The quote, "Hollywood Swan turned English Duchess, and Truman never wrote her," not only sums up Adele's unique journey from the heights of fame to a more private life, but also affirms her choice, a life lived on her own terms, without the need for validation or notes from the most famous writers, because her greatness was engraved in her dance moves and in the hearts of those who witnessed her heaven-sent talent. Adele Astaire was truly a legend of the stage, who chose a path that was little known, but still full of grace and resilience. And that's all for today's video. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up, let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe so you won't miss out on future uploads. See you next time.